In today's lesson, we are going to talk about how to get your interested prospects who never sign up. Right? They're interested, they may come back to you, they follow you, but when you try to close them, they never sign up. So these are people who are interested, they come back, and every time you say, hey, let's get you started, they always back away. So here's a mistake that most people make, right? It's like I just got off a coaching call. It was about psychology of prospecting. Know that you have the power. You, the network marketer, the entrepreneur, you have the power. Right? You don't need them, but they need you. Know that. I think a lot of you, your desperation, you feel like you need these people. Because if they don't join, what's going to happen to my business? But if you have that type of mindset, people are always going to run away from you. So what would you do if you have a prospect that always says they're interested, but they never join, right? Never started. So know that you have the power, the psychology is, it's you. If they don't join, it's their loss, not your loss. Because hey, you're gonna find, there's a 7 billion, whatever billion people in the planet. There's just 300 million in the U.S. alone, 25 million in Australia, 60 million in the U.K. Right? There's tons of people. So you have unlimited number of prospects, but they only have you. You are the leader, and not just your company, but you. You are unique. Every one of you, you are unique, and they get the one and only you to join. Right? So if they don't get started, it's their loss. So here's a couple of tips. Number one is never follow up too much. Right? Follow up too much is always checking in with them. Hey, are you ready to get started now? Are you ready to get started now? Like if they're the only person in the whole world, because it's weak posture. The more you chase them, the more they run away. And that's just psychology. The more you want something, the more they run away. Now, I'm teaching my son this. I say, hey, he won't. I'm telling him something. He won't listen. And then all of a sudden, you know what? I tell them, I got something to tell you, but I don't know if I should tell you. I don't know if I should really tell you. Maybe you should wait till next year when you're a little older. Now, all of a sudden, he's like, tell me, Dad, what is it? Because I took it away from them, right? It's a FOMO, fear of missing out. And it's the same thing with your prospects. So number one, don't follow up too much. Don't chase after them, because the more you chase after them, the more they will run away. So here are a couple of things you can do. Number one is if you have someone right now that has said they'll sign up but hasn't signed up, come up with an incentive. Okay, is there a bonus you can give that if they get started this week, okay, before Friday, this week, today, before the end of the week, they can get it. If not, they lose out. So what are some incentive ideas? Could be, now if you're depending on your company, the pay plan, you could be, if you have another rep, that's one of the things we used to do. When another rep sign up, we can put that person in your downline. Or we got a new customer, we can put in your downline, right? That's one thing. Another thing could be, you get a free sample. You get a free kit. Our company had like a $20 starter kit. Well, actually, hey, if you get started this week, you get a free kit. Right? Now, we didn't tell them how much the value of the kit was unless they asked, but you can get started a free kit. You can give something away, right? Or give a vacation away, right? If your company's in travel. Give a free months of utilities if you're in service. Come up with something, right? A free sample, a free product, a free training with your one-on-one with your leaders, if your upline is up for that, which is huge value. Come with some type of incentive, right? And you got to edify the upline. Or, when you go to the next event, you get a free one-on-one meeting with this team leader, right? Come up with some type of incentive. Now, second thing is you have to take it away, saying that, hey, you know what? So you can give incentive, but by the way, the incentive has a deadline. So if you don't get started by Friday night, it's gone. Someone else is going to take it. Or we can only take 5 people. Come with some type of incentive. Number two, what you can do is you can take it away from them, right? So what I mean by take away is, okay, I know you've been interested, but our team is booming, and I can only work with a certain number of people I can only work with 3 people in the next 90 days. If you don't get started this week, I won't be able to help you until 2020, until next year, right? Come up with something like that, and you got to stick to your word. So if they don't join, even if they wanted to join, they're not allowed to join. That's another thing. I use that all the time. You know what? I'm working closely with certain people in the next 3 months. If you want to get started, I'd love to work with you. But if you miss out, you have to wait until the fall. And you have to wait till next year. Take it away from them. That's really, really powerful. Actually, in fact, if you take all your interested prospects that watched the presentation, haven't joined, and you send that message out. And you know what? We're working on amazing things. Love for you to be part of the plan here. We can help you. But if you don't get started by the end of the week, unfortunately, I won't be able to work with you until next year. Send it out today, right? Hey, what do you have to lose? These people are not joining anyway. We used to do that. We actually use emails or text. We send it out to everyone on our list. Now I've been prospecting for a long time, so we have like 1,000 people. All we do is just sending messages out there, and we always got out of 1,000, 900 something would ignore us, but at least 1 or 2 people say, "Oh, I'm ready to join. Thank you for following up with it. I'm going to get started." Hey, that's how I recruited 80 something people a year. And there's always not people like, "I'm going to get started today." And some people, we just revived them. They were always interested, but they were scared to take action, and we gave them a takeaway. That's another incentive you can do, all right? Takeaways are really powerful. So your action step I want you to do, okay, we're talking about the 2 things. Number 1, don't follow about crazy. Don't be desperate. Don't be needy. But you always come up with an incentive, right? And the more powerful one is the takeaway. So your action step, I want you to give a takeaway to someone. See, I know you were interested in the past, but I've limited time. But if you don't get started by this week, my schedule is going to be packed right now. We got the summer, we got the kids. I won't be able to help you earn that extra income until next year. But if you get started before the weekend, I'll be fully committed for the next half a year. I'll be fully committed to helping you out. If you don't, then you're not allowed. You're not allowed. If you want to do this business, you can't reach out to me. I'm just letting you know that. Send it out to someone. Send it to 100 people. That's your action. Send it to 100 prospects you've had. I guarantee you, 90-something won't reply back, but 1 or 2 would. And those are the 2 people you will sign up. All right? So do that. This is how, again, it's the psychology of prospecting. The more you chase them, the more you run away. But the more you take things away from them, the more they want it. This is how you get interested prospects and never to sign up.